Welcome to your first Wednesday in the new year with the Jamaica Magazine team. It's good that you have crossed over with us and kept us as your source of information on issues and happenings in the government and its ministries, departments, and agencies. Our mission remains, but today's script is all about reviewing last year's finances while planning for the ones ahead. I'm Theodore Henry and welcome to Jamaica Magazine. Our financial talks continue after the day's news.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Wednesday, January 5. The National Identification System, NIDS, will be fully operational this year. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the commitment during Tuesday's tour of the NIDS Card Centre at the Post and Telecommunication Department on South Camp Road in Kingston. The facility will be responsible for producing the identification cards issued under NIDS. It includes the production centre, vault area and enrollment site. Prime Minister Holness says the system will allow government to streamline its services to properly plan for and distribute public resources.
One of the big problems we have always faced as a government is that some get and then others don't. And one of the reasons why you have that problem is that we just don't account for everyone. So we are not able to plan for everyone. And what we're doing in our 60th year now with the establishment of the NIDS is to ensure that every single Jamaican can be included, accounted for, and properly served with the National Identification System.
NIDS Program Director Warren Vernon says the system is 80% complete. This, he says, is being bolstered by the recruitment of technical experts to operate equipment, carry out verification, and staff enrollment sites.
We intend to use the next 4 months to fine-tune the system, to do all of our testing, security testing and so on. We are also using the time to set up pilot enrollment sites across Kingston to facilitate the pilot. We are also in the process of fine-tuning all of the requirements to establish the National Identification and Registration Authority.
Education Minister Favour Williams says the government will continue to facilitate the resumption of face-to-face classes, which began on January 3, while being guided by the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
They are the ones who have been guiding us through the pandemic. And as the Minister of Education, we work very closely with the Ministry of Health and Wellness on this whole question of whether or not our children should be back in school, how they should be back, when they should be back.
Minister Williams was speaking yesterday at the donation of a cartridge-free printer and reams of paper to the Rock Hall Primary School in St. Andrew. Meanwhile, at today's post-cabinet press briefing, Minister Williams said 608 schools reopened for the Easter term across all 7 regions. 173 primary schools and 120 secondary institutions are still operating in the online space.
So far, the majority of schools that are back in the face-to-face environment have reported no issues. There are some schools that reported to us, and those were 23 schools reported that students or teachers would have called in to say that they have flu-like symptoms and were remaining at home. In one instance, there's one school that reported the principal having called in to say that he had tested positive for COVID and was remaining at home.
Face-to-face resumption of classes began using a phase-in approach in November last year. Thus far, all pre-primary, primary, and secondary schools have been allowed to facilitate face-to-face classes for this school term. The Education Ministry recommends that a blended learning approach be used to include online lessons, audiovisual classes, and learning kits. The school train service Back on Track will officially roll out on Monday, January 10 in St. Catherine. The rollout, which was initially scheduled for January 3, had to be pushed back as school administrators are using the week to prepare for face-to-face classes. Back on Track student transportation service will begin with 3 engines and 6 coaches. A train will leave from Old Harbour at 6:30 in the morning and arrive in Spanish Town by 6:55 a.m. Another service will leave Linstead at 6:20, getting to Spanish Town by 7 a.m. Once the trains arrive in Spanish Town, the Jamaica Urban Transit Company, JUTC, will take students along the routes to Jose Marti, Jonathan Grant, St. Catherine, St. Jago, Innswood, and Spanish Town High Schools. At the recent launch, Transport and Mining Minister Robert Montague said the service would largely benefit students on the Program of Advancement through Health and Education PATH.
I am very happy and proud. Proud of my ministry, proud of my people, proud of the collaboration that we were able to work together for the interest of our children and the nation's future.
I am extremely happy for what is happening here this morning for those 400 students who will be able to take the train to school or the combination of the train and the JUTC to school and back.
The Back on Track school train service is a partnership involving the Ministries of Transport and Education, the Jamaica Railway Corporation, the Jamaica Constabulary Force, and the JUTC. In other news, the Jamaica Constabulary Force, JCF, is reminding the public of some of the crash hotspots across the country and is appealing to motorists to exercise extra care when traversing these roadways. Crash hotspots are areas where 2 or more crashes and road fatalities have occurred. Head of the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, PSTEB, Assistant Commissioner of Police Gary McKenzie, says the crash hotspots have been mapped and personnel have been deployed. The areas include the toll highway between Caymanas and the Vineyards, Nelson Mandela Highway, and Michael Manley Boulevard in the corporate area.
If we look at St. Catherine, Old Harbour Road, Clarendon, Bustamante Highway, St. Anne, the Landover Main Road, St. James, the Rosal Main Road, those areas are areas of concern, and we have heightened our presence. However, we continue to appeal to drivers to slow down.
In 2021, 482 persons lost their lives on the nation's roads, surpassing the 432 recorded in 2020. And finally, 42 wards of the state, housed at the Mount Olivet Home for Boys in Walderston, Manchester, received gifts for the Christmas holidays from the Jamaica Information Service and partnering sponsors to the home. A visit by a team from the JIS and Olympian Johan Blake, representing his Why Be Afraid Foundation, lifted the spirit of the boys at their annual dinner and awards and gift presentation on December 12.
The boys always look forward to this time of year when you get a lot of goodies. The JIS team is such a wonderful team, and they have been such a tower of strength to the boys here, especially when it comes to the education of our boys.
You are so important to us that we are here, and we are here to support you, to encourage you, and to celebrate with you.
You are the man of tomorrow. You are going to take over. And don't ever feel like through you're not home, you can't achieve what you want to achieve. Never once doubt yourself.
And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
Jamaica's COVID-19 vaccination plan is still in effect. If you wish to make an appointment, please do so online by visiting moh.gov.jm or by calling 888-663-5683. Vaccination still a keep. Go get your jab today.
As much as many of us would have liked it to end, last year we continued our journey through the woes of the COVID-19 pandemic, which impacted the finances of nations right across the world. Here in Jamaica, like many other places, our government implemented plans to cushion the financial impact for Jamaica at all levels. So here's a look back at the year that was for the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service.
Redirecting finances to critical areas. pooling resources to maintain a stable economy as the country navigated its second year of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Because at the end of the day, it's the outcomes that matter.
So, let's look at a few critical decisions that were made in 2021. The first bold move by the government was to not introduce any new taxes to fund the 2021-2022 budget.
We are prioritizing economic recovery, which we want to achieve in the quickest possible time. Increases taxes at this time would run counter to that objective.
With an eye on being fiscally responsible as well as responsive to the changing environment, an $830.8 billion budget was approved and later increased by $33 billion. This was used to provide additional resources for the health sector to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. It also provided resources for the most vulnerable and funding for other critical areas of expenditure.
The first supplementary estimates are being tabled in the context of government revenues exceeding budgetary targets by $17.3 billion for the 4 months, April to July of 2021.
The country witnessed robust economic growth of 14.2% for the April to June quarter and 6.3% for the July to September period. Overall growth for the period January to September was 4%.
Good policy pays dividends literally and figuratively.
The Independent Fiscal Commission Act 2020 was approved by the Senate in February, while the Bank of Jamaica BOJ became an independent institution following the enactment of the Bank of Jamaica Amendment Act 2020 on April 16.
We're giving the central bank a job to do, we're empowering the central bank to do it, and we're giving them the operational independence to get the job done.
BOJ's functionality was further strengthened by the Senate's approval of rules and regulations to facilitate the license and supervision of the microcredit sector. The central bank's net international reserves was over $3 billion to close out the calendar year. The country's inflation rate at September was 2.3%. Another high point for the Ministry of Finance was the upgrade of the country's economic outlook from negative to stable by credit ratings agency Standard & Poor's.
Good policy does not only consider today, it considers tomorrow. Notwithstanding the fiscal challenges, the government continues to prioritize expenditure to support the delivery of services to Jamaicans.
This included a $75 billion allocation to the Social and Economic Recovery and Vaccine Serve program for Jamaica. It included allocations for critical infrastructure programs and recovery support to small businesses and farmers. MSMEs received $3 billion in loans and grants to support the use of digital technology in their operations. These businesses were also connected to a one-stop online digital marketplace by the Development Bank of Jamaica. To facilitate financial inclusion, the BOJ rolled out the pilot of its central bank digital currency in September to approved financial institutions and minted $230 million. There was also the inaugural launch of the ministry's Wealth Summit to help individuals and businesses make wise financial decisions. The Ministry of Finance continued its COVID-19 recovery efforts in 2021. To encourage take-up of the vaccine, the ministry rolled out its COVID-19 Vaccine Incentive Program. A one-time grant of $10,000 was offered to fully vaccinated persons 60 years and older. The ministry also extended its grant support under the Best and Set Cash programs to those who lost their jobs at the start of the pandemic. To support these and other efforts, the country received a $75 million loan commitment from the Inter-American Development Bank. The Ministry of Finance and the Joint Confederation of Trade Unions, JCTU, signed a one-year 4% wage agreement in October. It included a one-off payment of $40,000 for workers earning up to $1.5 million annually. The ministry also made it easier for low-income families to access funds from the Students' Loan Bureau by reducing the number of guarantors from 2 to 1.
It is in the public interest that the goal of accessibility be balanced by the goal of sustainability.
The Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, applying strategic measures for economic growth and providing access to financing as Jamaica and Jamaicans recover stronger together.
That was a look back, and we must go forward as time demands of us. But if we want to keep our finances in order, having solid plans are key. Our next feature focuses on helping parents and guardians to plan for their child's financial future.
Hello everyone, I'm Xavier Campbell, an educator, financier and entrepreneur. Education is very important to our development and can take years to achieve the highest level. It is also very costly, and some persons will have a difficult time finding the money up front, especially in the absence of careful financial planning. So, within the next few minutes, I want to share a few steps that will guide your approach to financing your child or children's education. Let's start with, when should we begin that financial planning? According to the Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Although there is no perfect time to begin planning for your child's tertiary education, starting as early as possible is the best way to ensure you are prepared financially and avoid the common pitfalls. Having a step-by-step plan is the best way to ensure that you are able to finance your child's education without sacrificing your personal financial plan. There are several things to consider when planning for your child or children's education. However, most notable among them are: parents must identify the future costs of tertiary education and have a clear sum in mind of what their target will be. Then work their way backwards to present and see how best they can earn to realize the future goal. A clear financial plan should be put in place either by the parents themselves or with the help of a professional financial planner. The discipline is what follows the plan to ensure that all financial objectives are being taken care of in terms of allocations and meeting the various timelines set out by the plan. Once all incomes and expenditures remain in accordance to the plan, by the time your child reaches maturity, their tertiary education funding would have been readily available to offset the costs associated. Now your options could be savings or investments. Both are good, but let's look at them closely. There are basically two ways to make money. One, you work for money. Two, your money works for you. So savings is the process of putting aside a portion of your income for future use. In this case, we are talking about education. So if you're going to save, you need to put aside some of your income to ensure that you're able to offset the cost of your education in the future. While investment is you putting money aside that will generally earn interest over the period of time that you put it aside for. Therefore, having a plan inclusive of savings and investments can put parents in a better position to offset the future expenses of education. Firstly, if you're not financially literate, I would advise you to seek assistance from a professional financial advisor to ensure you are getting qualified advice that will help you achieve your goal. Here are the 5 steps of planning your child's education. Step 1, set target date. Step 2, find current cost of the education. Step 3, find target amount. Step 4, estimate the returns you can generate. And step 5, calculate the monthly contribution. Here are some additional things to consider. A partner plan is a very good thing. Creating a savings account and/or fixed deposit. Invest in one of the various educational products available from a preferred financial institution. And maintain your discipline while ensuring that the projected amounts are allocated at the appropriate time to achieve your financial goal effectively and efficiently. One of the most common mistakes that parents make is that they think that they need this large lump sum. But as the Jamaican proverbs go, every mickle make a muckle, so therefore they can start small and then build onwards. Now another mistake that they normally would make is the fact that they think that savings alone would help in terms of offsetting the costs in the future. What I would recommend is for them to use a culmination of both savings and investments in order to achieve their financial goal. So the first disadvantage I want to speak about is the inability to set financial goals. So you not being able to set goals will also lead to you being demotivated and lack the knowledge that is required to achieve that goal. And as a result of that demotivation and that lack of knowledge that is required, then there is no direction. So we consider it to be a lack of direction, right? And if there's a lack of direction, then what will happen is that poor financial outcomes would be the result of that. In concluding, planning for your child or children's education is not just dependent on the numbers. Rather, it's a combination of several factors, namely social, personal beliefs, religious, your way of approaching, and general outlook at life. However, the cost of education on a rise. Parents are looking at various investment vehicles to secure their child or children's future. Judicious planning for your children's future is essential, and empowering them with an education plan is a wise thing to do. Start to reap maximum benefits very early. Create a sustainable future for them to bloom in.
Some children are also planning for their own financial future, turning sweet treats into profits by generating money from the bee. Recently, we met with two youngsters who started their very own beekeeping business, and the results are, well, they're buzzing.
Me and my sister got started when we were very young. I think I was 6 or something around that age. And my mom had 4 hives. And that is the beginning of success.
The name of our family business is Maccabee Enterprise. Here at Maccabee Enterprise, we are all beekeepers, down to my 9-year-old sister, Camila.
Working with the bees is nice. It's less challenging than back in the days. Don't want to sound too old. It is fun now. I am more confident. Yeah. It is calming, soothing. Takes you out of this world, bring in another. So it's fun. It's actually fun. My role here on the farm is using an extractor to extract honey. There are many ways. I will be explaining 2 ways. First is the professional method where you use an extractor. So you have a capping knife, a knife with like a serrated edge, and you would uncap, which is a thin sheet of wax on top of the comb with the honey inside. So it's like a seal. So you use a knife and uncap that. Then you put it in the extractor and spin it, and it would flash out on the side of the extractor and drain to the bottom, and then you leak it out into a bucket. The other way is, well, when you don't have an extractor, is that you would use a capping fork, or you could use a regular fork, and you would hold the frame like this, long way, and you'd use the fork and gently scrape the frame. So you're taking off the comb, you're removing the comb from the frame in a sense, but you'd have on the frame there is a sheet of wax that we would put on as beekeepers, foundation. So it would guide the bees, to build more small cells that would get more workers in the hive.
From the bees, we get 5 main products, right? We have pollen, propolis, beeswax, honey, and royal jelly. So based on those 5 things, we actually think about what we can do with those 5 things. So in beekeeping, we actually have honey flow periods and we have dirt season. Those are the 2 main periods. In between, we have like a pre-flow and pre-dirt, basically. But okay, so in our honey season, that's the time when they're on production. They're bringing in their honey, their pollen, everything up on top. But for like in St. Thomas, there's like a 6-month period where there's dirt. There's no honey, no much honey that we can reap. There's just enough for them to feed themselves and their babies and be able to stay alive. In the dirt period, when there's not enough honey for us to harvest and be able to sell, we do things like remove our old combs and boil it out and we get wax. With the wax, we do like the body butters, we do candles, lip conditioner. So that's the wax. With the pollen, we actually collect the pollen, and the pollen is a very good multivitamins. So we actually collect the pollen and dry it and package it for sale. For the royal jelly, we don't do a lot of work with the royal jelly. As we go along, we are actually developing products. So for the royal jelly right now, we put it in our honey wine. And then again, the honey wine is made from honey. My involvement in making the byproducts are production. I do most of the labels. I have help, so I can't take all the credit, but most of the labels are from me. I do social media marketing, so most of the WhatsApp texts, Instagram, they might mostly be from me. My younger siblings' involvement in the business is some help with the production. So there is some small things like shredding the wax that they can do. They help with the bees as well because we're homeschool and we kind of tag along with our parents right through and through. So with the bees and with production. And my younger sister, she's very artistic. So when I'm actually doing the labels, sometimes she would draw this beautiful picture and I would actually use that as part of the label.
I have 4 personal hives for myself. I have 3 long struts, which is the regular kind of box that you would see that holds 10 frame and they would stack on one on top of the other. And I have 1 top bar, which is a 30 frame box, which goes a long way. And it only has a top bar. It doesn't have the top bar with the square. It doesn't have a frame, it's just the top bar. My advice to other youth interested in beekeeping is you have to be persistent and you have to be confident and you have to be committed to beekeeping.
Beekeeping can be very wide. You don't have to just stuck with the bees, the sting, the honey. There is so much more that you can do. You can do candles. There is actually a shortage of beeswax candles. And beeswax candles are very easy. You mold, you wick, your color if you need, and you're done. Lip conditioner is another easy one. And if you go online, just take some of your time out of your texting and just research some products that you can actually do from the products that you get from the bees. The 5 products I mentioned, there's so much more.
Our 30 minutes journey is never enough to share all that we have planned for you, and that's why we've added a plethora of content on our YouTube channel, which you can check out. There's also more content on our website, or Facebook, or Instagram and Twitter pages, which can be accessed at any time from virtually anywhere. From all of us here at the JIS, I'm Theodore Henry. See you soon.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.